Cool. Then I think I would just start off with the topics. So again, in this session, we are going to heavily talk about. I won't say talk about because I'm majorly going to discuss a few things, and I'm open to any suggestions or feedbacks or any thoughts that you might have. So the topic that we are going to focus today is designing for diversity, right? And um, we are going to look at it from the Indian lens in designing content, if you know what I'm talking about. So if you're new to designing content, you might understand that all the products that you're using right now has this layers and layers of content, right? It's like peeling an onion, right? There are different layers to it. Most people don't think that it's much, but if you are into product, you will know that it plays a very important role when you're designing for the end users, because you need to understand what you need to actually put on the screen, right? So I'm just going to start off. So I'll probably just start off with an incident that led me to this thinking. So back in 2015, I would say, I was doing my graduation, and then I was learning about language and linguistics, and I came across this very interesting phrase, and I was learning about the cognitive science behind the language acquisition. Please go ahead and read about it if you're interested. It's going to be very helpful for you. So it talks about you can only understand as much of the world as the language you have to describe it. Now, if you take a moment to let it soak in, and then you read it again, that you only understand as much of the world as the language you have to describe it. That means it happens to us sometimes, right? We just say that, I don't know how to describe it. I can't find the right words to describe it, right? So it puts us in a very difficult position where we are feeling a lot of things, but we don't have the enough words to actually explain how we are feeling about it, right? So, and this particular thing stuck with me, and it resurfaced back and when I was doing my masters in 2019 2020, and I was reading the Lovecraftian storytelling. So you can always go ahead and Google it if you want. So I was reading about, Lovecraftian stories, and this author, H.P. Lovecraft, he has written a couple of stories, and in his stories you'll find that there is always an author, a person, a protagonist who experiences something, and then they don't know how to describe it in the right words, right? There is a YouTube video as well. I think it's called The White Walls. If you just type it in, The White Walls Lovecraft, maybe you'll find it. um, so I'll just give you something to picturize, right, since we are starting this session. So there's this person in a room, okay, and all his generations have been in that white room. The walls are white, okay. There are no doors, no windows specifically. There is a door on the back, but this person um, always looks at the white wall, and uh, it's all they know about, right? It's all they always wanted to be. It's all they wanted in their entire life, is to stare at the white wall. I know it's weird, but just let me continue. So the person, he stares at the white wall, and then one day suddenly the back door, it opens all of a sudden, and this person goes to close the door, and then before he closes the door, he looks outside, and then there's this wide variety of things outside. I mean, there are birds, there are animals, different shapes and sizes, different colors. There's this burst of different colors flowing all around, right? And the person is awestruck, looking at it, and all of a sudden the door shuts. And then now this person who has experienced, maybe for a brief moment of time, something which is like out of the world, he has never experienced it in his entire life, and nobody talked to him about it. And he goes back to the white wall, and now the white walls are not enough for him. And he spends his entire life, like, the I won't spoil it for you, but he spends his entire life trying to recreate what he saw outside, but he says at the end that it's not enough, right? I can never make you understand what I felt for that brief moment, right? When, let's say, you have a friend and they went for skydiving or bungee jumping for the first time, and they say, what I experienced is something, but I don't think I have enough words to explain it to you. So that is, I feel, the importance of words, because we have these experiences in our lives where we are short of words and we can't explain it, right? And this may be a very trivial thing for us, like we have taken language for granted, but imagine we don't have language right now. At this moment, we won't be able to communicate with each other, right? Even though we have all the technical abilities, if we don't have words, we don't know how to communicate. How are we going to communicate with each other, right? So basically what I was saying is, it's like trying to understand what we can't fathom, right? And I have a very simple example, is that we live in three dimension, right? We live in three dimension, whereas there is length, breadth, and height. And if someone comes along, a scientist maybe, and they try to explain, what, in seventh dimension you have this, and then you can use time to go back and forth. I mean, I'll be like, what are you saying? Have you gone crazy? But that's not crazy, right? That actually exists, maybe, right? Uh, but it's difficult for us to fathom because we don't know about it, and that's the scary part of us, right? The unknown is terrifying because we have no language or framework to contain it, right? And that is why it's scary. And I would say it happens in almost every facet in our lives. You can take an example of, you're afraid of going in the dark because you don't know who's there, right? uh, it's start off with a simple example, to something, if you're designing something and it's terrifying because it's a blank canvas and you don't know how to start. The same goes for language. When you're designing something where you have no idea how people are going to perceive the product that you're designing, or maybe redesigning something, you don't know how people are going to react to it, and hence you are scared of it, right? And that's why it is important for us to understand that language plays a very important role, and it has to go along with the design. If you are a designer, don't think that, there is step one and step two. It kind of goes hand in hand. So uh, go ahead and, make mistakes, and then you learn along the way, right? Right. And without language, we can't make sense of things, and that makes us powerless, and it makes us vulnerable and small, right? Imagine you have a great idea of a product, but then you don't know how you're going to design it, you don't know how you're going to structure it, you don't know how you're going to validate it, right? And you don't know what how you should proceed with the content design, how you need to strategize it. And that's what makes it terrifying, right? Okay, why am I talking about this? Probably because I want all of us to understand that it is very important to talk about, and I have a few examples that maybe we can make use of. So let's say you have a product, right, that only speaks in one kind of English, right? You have Indian English, and you have American English and UK English, right? So let's say you're designing a product and then it speaks only one kind of English, but you want your product to cater to the wider audience, right? Then it's what's going to happen is it may leave out the people who think in another language or in cultural context, right? We are going to deep dive into some of these things to give you an idea, but let's start off with this, right? So you're designing something, it caters to only one group, you leave out the other groups, right? Let's say you have a chatbot which uses a formal language, and it might miss the comfort of speaking in casual way, right? It's going to be difficult for people who don't like formal language and talking, dear sir, you need to do this, things like that. So that's not going to work for those kinds of audiences. Next up, we have, let's say if we have a screen that uses metaphors, right, which is unfamiliar to someone, they don't understand it, so it becomes very difficult or harder to relate, right, harder to use, because we don't know what it means, right? And that's why I think we need to be very cautious in understanding and finding out what kind of language we need to incorporate. And before we actually go there, we need to do a bit of research. We need to understand, okay, this is what we have, and this is what I'm thinking to build. What do I need in the middle to actually strategize the entire thing, right? Cool. Okay, moving on. So let's look at it from a wider lens. I think that will be helpful for us. um, what the language, right? So India is land of diversity, right? And this is nothing new, and because there are different countries in different parts of the world where you have just one place where you have different people from different ethnicities, different groups, different cultural backgrounds, and they speak differently, right? So we need to understand how do we cater to those. So India is a land of almost 22 official languages, and we have almost 122 major languages. Uh, and I think we have close to 20,000 different dialects. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You have a chat section. You can just go ahead and discuss few things if you feel you need some sharing some thoughts. So India is a diverse country, and like you go every 10 kilometers, and then people speak a different dialect, right? They speak a they have a different way of explaining things. So that is what we are dealing with when we talk about designing for the wider audience. Few years back, I was working on a very close a project with one of the greatest, I would say largest electronic device creators. And sadly I can't go into much details, but I would just put it out there that I learned a lot during that phase, because um, at that point of time I realized that, oh, we are so different. I mean, the way we speak, the colloquial terms that we use, it's so different from the other people. I'll just take a small example, like I was watching Kanan Gill. He's a stand-up comedian, and he talks about, in India we have, like, we say, "How was the presentation? Did you like Sharmilee's presentation?" And then you will say, "Ah, it was a time pass." So it's not what it seems to people in UK or US, because for them it's like, that's how I pass the time, right? I do this in my leisure. But in India, the term time pass, it can have a different meaning. So if I say, "Ah, it was time pass," that means, "Ah, it was okay, okay," right? So that's how language has evolved, right? We have heard about time pass, and then now we have crafted the this word in our own way so that it's understandable only to our people, right? um, and I'll talk about this more in my coming slides. So this is what I learned, and I think we should take a moment s- to stand back and listen to the people around us who are trying to have these conversations, and then based on that we can take some inputs daily, and then we can create a report that okay, this is how we speak in our region. But if I'm designing something for the entire space, I may have to do a bit of trial and error, right? There was this study by KPMG, Google Language Report, in 2017, and they clearly mentioned that almost 90% of the users are actually non-English speakers, especially in India, and then you have 20% who like to have native language content. So when you know that you have a larger chunk, you have 90% of people who don't speak English at all, how are you going to design a product in English for a community who are non English speakers? And it's not possible for us to design in every, like, it's not possible for us to design in 20,000 different dialects. Like, that's crazy. We can definitely not go in that path. But this is something to think about, right? Now, some of you might say, "Ah, we have a solution, right? We can translate it. It's easy." And right now we have a lot of translation apps. If you use Uber or Ola, you'll see there is this conversation method that happens. So when the rider is closer to you, they'll message you, "Hey, I've arrived at your location," and they might write it in their own language. And these amazing companies, they have tried to add a different layer of translation. So if I prefer English, I'll get the message that hey, I've arrived at your place. But the person on the back end, the driver, must have written it in their own regional language. So it's a win-win for all of us, right? So you might say, Sharmil, it's not an issue, right? We can have a translation thinking, yeah, and then we can translate everything. Now my question would be, go back and try to translate something in your own language, in your regional language, in your mother tongue. Take just one screen and try doing it. I bet it's going to be really hard. If you want me to look at it, if you have different perspective, I welcome you to just flood my inbox, LinkedIn inbox, and just share your thoughts. But I tried doing it and it's not enough. I couldn't succeed. If you have a different process, I would love to hear about it. But I think translation is not enough because there are different layers to it again. So I learned about this. I think uh, the Nielsen Norman Group has a proper study, a proper article that talks about it, that translation is not enough. And they segregate these methodologies. So if you want to diverse your approach, you can do two things. You can either translate your application or you can localize it, right? Now I'll just give you a quick example. So translation simply just translates what you have over the screen. So whatever labels you're having, it's just going to translate to your target language. Let's say I have, for example, here you have H&M landing page, and they translated it to Chinese, and then they have translated all the labels, right? So you'll say that okay, it's fine, it works. But it may not be enough for all the users, because we need to also understand that all these people who have different cultural backgrounds, they have different expectations as well. They have different understanding as well. Now, to give you a little exercise, maybe you can try logging in to Amazon, and you can try selecting different locations, and then you'll see how the landing page, it changes according to different location. I mean, it's crazy. I didn't know about it earlier, but when I the day I knew about it, I was like mad, because you see how different people from different culture actually perceive that particular thing, right? So you can try doing this. And here the example that I've pulled in from the Nielsen Norman Group's article is, it's amazing. So they have this H&M landing page, which is in English, then you switch it to China, to China, your location, and then you have this a different look and feel. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you only change the labels. It means you change the entire content design. You change the designs, you selected your models according to it. And here you have, I think during that point of time, they had Chinese New Year, so they wanted to include a banner as well. So, this is what happens when you try to localize something. You try to understand the nuances of that particular culture, and then based on that, you just design it based on that, right? And that is why I say that writing for India is not just translation, it's a cultural code. And I think it doesn't necessarily only work in terms of India, it can happen all across the world, right? So now let's explore how language, behave, how we have like different language behaviors. Maybe I'll just give you a quick example. um, so language evolves, really? Do you think language evolves? Um, you might share it in the chat, but uh, if you go to Egypt and then you see all the in what do you in that in the stone tablets, you have these writings of the in the older ages, and then now you have a different meaning, right? Simple example would be if you go to a library and then you pick a very old English book, thou thee, you may not be able to understand because we are not used to it anymore, right? So thou has evolved to you, right? Now we don't use thou anymore, we use you. So it's true for all the languages. In Hindi also, there were bits and pieces of changes, how Hindi evolved from Devanagari or maybe Sanskrit, and now it has become more fine solution for all of us, right? Some of the words have been reduced so that because of different cultural reasons. And that is something maybe you can go back and try to learn what you have different in your culture. What your grandparents or great grandparents used to speak. Do you speak the same language? I think it has differed quite a lot. So I think this is going to be very important, these two slides that I'm going to talk about. So I learned about code switching and code mixing. If you are new to it, you can go back and research. So, code is nothing but language, right? And you need to understand it. I'll just give you a very layman example. So, let's say you're living on an island, and then you have a visitor who come to that island and they start living with you, right? And they are from a different cultural background, and then slowly you get a hang of them. Try to have a conversation with them, and then slowly you learn their language, right? Slowly but surely. And then when you try to have a conversation with them, you would switch your language. You'll switch from your language to their language, right? To make sure that the conversation is smoother. That's why when we change places, we switch our languages. So when I go to my regional place, I might use my mother tongue, but when I'm in a different place, I might use Hindi or English, which is widely spoken and widely understood. So that is called language switching, like code switching. And the other thing that I learned is code mixing. So I think this is something that we do on a daily basis. It's like speaking in a fragmented way, where you mix the words uh, of what you know in language one and language two. I'll just give you a quick example. So let's say in Hindi we say, rider late hoga thoda wait kar lo, right? So in this sentence, all the green ones are in English. Let's say that's language one, and the other words in pink are in Hindi, that is language two. Now this is a classic example of code mixing. So you mix up language. Specifically, if you are sorry, if you are a multilingual person, and sometimes we do it to convey our intention and have a fun chat with our friends, so we try to switch the words here and there, and that is called code switching. And the other example is code mixing, when you say a full sentence in one language, and then you say an entire sentence in a different language. That is Yes, so these are the two examples that I could find out. Maybe you might have some more examples, but yeah, this is something which is very important for us to understand, that as human beings, as a culture, we evolve over time, and that is how we acquire language from different people. Tomorrow, if you start living in Japan, day one you won't know anything, but slowly in a month or two you'll start grasping some phrases, some sentences here and there, and then slowly you'll start exchanging conversations, and that's how you learn a language, you acquire it, right? And that's how you switch codes, and then you mix code to share your thought processes with the outer world, right? Now the question is, why do we mix or switch codes? You might say, okay, but why do we need to know about this, right? The importance is, the reason is, sometimes we don't have the right words to convey. We can't find the right word in one language. So register is nothing but a word or language. So sometimes we don't have enough word in a language, so that we try to switch language to see, okay, do I have something in that language that will convey my message? Next is, maybe to you want to connect with the group, or maybe to exclude someone from your group. This used to happen in schools, right? We used to have private chats with each other, so we use language there, and sometimes we use it to express our emotions, and sometimes we do it to add warmth or bring more clarity to what we are saying, and that's why we mix or we switch codes to find out the right words to express our emotions. And this illustrates how language, it changes over time, with words adopting, and they evolve from their older forms to the newer forms to adapt to the change that we are experiencing, right? Now the question is, why the Indian lens? What the Indian lens really means? What does it mean when I talk about Indian lens, right? What does it mean? So this is a very fun story that I think I would like to share with all of you, is that I went to shop with my mom the other day. We went to buy bamboo baskets, um, and my mom is very extroverted, and she can talk to anyone. So she started having conversation with this lady who was selling the bamboo baskets. And then I was standing there looking at them. They were having doing their thing, they were having conversations, and then these two person who are having conversation with each other, they have different cultural background. My mom is a Bengali, my this older lady is a Marathi, so they have different cultural background, and they know two entirely different language. So my mother, she knows only Bangla fully, and then she knows, I think, 40-50% of Hindi. The other lady, she knows her mother tongue entirely, completely, and she also knows Hindi, which is widely spoken, only 40 or 50%. So both of these people who are conversing, they know half of the language they are trying to communicate, right? They know only half of it. So I remember they were discussing, where do you live, when did you come here in this particular place. So my mom was saying that I came to Pune, this particular place. The name, the place is called Pune. So she was explaining, I came here last month, And in Hindi, if you translate it, she was trying to say that मैं पिछले मास आया था. Now, people who know Bengali people, they know, uh, we have this, a person who knows a lot of, they know their mother tongue, they have difficulty speaking a global language, right? If they are not used to it. So my mom thought that it would be wise to use the word mas, which, if you translate it into Bangla, her regional language, it means month, right? But then, when you translate it to Hindi, it becomes something else for the other person. Now, I understood why this happened, is because all the people who know their regional language, they try to uh, frame a sentence in their head in their regional language, then they try to translate it to the language that is globally spoken, or that is widely spoken, or maybe the other person knows, and then they translate it and then they speak it, right? But what happens is every word, every culture, or every language has a different sentence structure, and they have different words and different meanings. So my mom, she thought about this sentence in Bangla first. So for her, the word mas made sense because it means month, right? So she just said it again in Hindi. She just mixed her code, her Bangla, her regional language, with Hindi. So Mas is Hindi, the others are Mas is, sorry, Mas is in Bangla and the other is in Hindi. So she mixed her code, right? And then she stated this. Now, what happened is when she said it, the lady on the other hand, she replied, "Hum mas nahi khate." That means we don't eat non-veg. And the issue came when the lady heard about the word mass, because this word mass, which makes sense to my mom, which when she's thinking in her regional language, for this lady, the same word means non-veg in her language. So there are a lot of words. I think it's prevalent across the world, where you have one word which means different things in different dialects or in different languages. And now the conversation went in different direction. Now there was, after this lady said we don't eat non-veg, because she thought my mom is probably talking about non-veg because she said mas, but that was entirely not true. And there was a 2 minute long pause from both of them, because they were like, they didn't understand what they should say next. And then I went in to clarify. So this is like one of the teeniest example that I think I wanted to share with you, because I think in different parts of the world we experience it on a daily basis. Right now we have Google Translate and everything, so we would slightly face lesser issue in conversing with someone from a different cultural background. But for people who are not that tech savvy, it's still a challenge. And now you see, when you zoom out and then you see, okay, so if I think of designing something in English, that is, none of these guys that you're seeing on the screen, they don't know entirely this language that I'm thinking to design. How am I going to design it? How should I design for the people who have different understandings of the same words? And how am I going to design something which is going to enhance their experience? In order to enhance their experience, they need to understand what your product does. And in order to do that, we need to refine the language. We need to choose how we want to design the content strategy. What language do we pick? How do we pick? How exactly do we pinpoint the problems and the solutions and everything? And here's another very quick example is, uh, again, when I said earlier that translation is not, I don't think it's possible in every way, because as a UX specialist, when I think of something that okay, it has a future, maybe 5 years down the line it can be translated, or maybe we need to design for people who are speaking or coming from a different cultural background, and right now it's in English. Let's say I want to uh, design for the Japanese audiences as well 5 years down the line. I need to also be mindful that I have enough space to contain the language. The example that you see here is in English, which says she's not into art, right? Let's say it's a very simple sentence, but when you change it to a different language, to a Telugu, Tamil, or Bangla, whatever different languages, you'll see the same sentence. It takes up a lot of space, right? Because of the individual letters and the spaces between them. Of course, you can go ahead and think of playing with the fonts if you're a designer, but you are not going to go far if you're going to follow that process, because every language, they have their different lengths and breadths when we are thinking of translating it. And that is why we need to be very mindful. That's why I think I was conversing with another UX writer, and then we were discussing that okay, if we have this particular product and we think of redesigning it or expanding it to a different cultural group, how much space do we need to have? So as a UX specialist, as a content designer, you need to be very mindful that okay, does it have a scope in future? Is it going to be expanded? If so, you have to be very careful about what you're choosing right now, because tomorrow if you think of just translating it, you might need more space, right, on the application. And that is why I say that with multiple languages, and we have different dialects and scripts, our users, they describe the world in a very diverse ways. If you ever conduct user research, and I think I would appreciate if you go ahead and talk about the with your friends, or your user group if you have, so to to at least talk and get out the ideas of what they are thinking and what they would want. Because when you have a conversation with someone, so I'll give you this example that every time I think of maybe doing a tiny project or something, I straight away go to my mom or my dad, um, because I understand that if I can make them understand, then maybe I'm going in the right direction. If I'm thinking of expanding the horizon and thinking of designing for more cultural backgrounds, more cultural ethnicities, I would say, because then you get a picture from their perspective as well. So the example that I showed you earlier, that if you just stay and be mindful that okay, this is what is going on, this is how it happens actually. So based on that, you can just design it, right? And yeah, that is why I believe that every time a user switches or mixes a language, they are telling you who they are, so you need to listen. So I was very amazed when I first stumbled upon these incidents with my mom, because I got to know so much about that. Okay, it might not be a trouble for me because I have tools and I know how to chat GPT or do a bit of Gemini and Google translate my thoughts to someone else. But if I'm designing for someone, I need to also make sure that not everyone is going to have the luxury of the tools that we have, right? And I got to learn a lot about the nuances of the language. Of course, I'm not an expert. You guys must have better examples than me. Please go ahead. I would love to talk about those. If you would love to, I would love to connect with you. Maybe you have a project or you have some new findings that. Maybe I can look at or I'll be interested in. Drop me a message, and I think this is a high time where we try to make the world understand that how important content design is, uh, and how we can collaborate with the designers in a synergetical manner, in a symbiotic manner, so that we can design for the futures. Because right now we are talking about, AR, VR, and everything. So I think it's high time we start thinking about all these nuances, because then later on it's going to be too late, right? Let's design experiences that reflect this complexity, of course, respectfully, beautifully, and with heart.